All right, ladies and gentlemen, Christopher Greene. I'm out here at beautiful Kapalua. You can see behind me this afternoon, and I want to talk about the singularity being achieved, but then move past that and really tell you about the next two major trends in this world that you should take advantage of. So it should be clear by now that 2013 algorithms and the singularity basically reached the Moore's Law apex, where supercomputers are running pretty much all of our society, whether or not it's the media, financial markets, popular opinion, politics, local governments, federal governments, etc. The Federal Reserve, even monetary fiscal policy is being run by these algorithms. So I hear questions a lot of the time. People say, well, why is everything a hive mind? And why is everyone talking about the same topics? Why is there no novelty? Why is there no art, new invention, philosophy? Why is social media boring? Why isn't any fun? Why isn't there anyone unique anymore? Well, a couple rules and reasons are, number one, algorithms are dictating basically the narrative. Secondly, the mass censorship of new ideas have been eradicated from society. This means no invention. This means you're not allowed to make mistakes. Mistakes lead to art, mistakes lead to invention, mistakes led to the light bulb. Again, I've talked about this incessantly. This is why freedom of speech is so important. Never would have invented electricity. We wouldn't have any of the inventions that we currently have if it wasn't for these sheer facts. So moving past that, because that's boring, we already know that. We already understand all this truth. And for example, this ties into everything. This ties into financial markets, this ties into currencies, this ties into blockchain. The whole world system is being remodeled. So I want to put out a term here that you're going to be hearing a lot more in the coming days, weeks, and months, especially with midterms as we move into the new system. It's called a multipolar order. Okay, you're going to hear this all the time. Multipolar order. An order where other countries take charge, and it's not just the United States, as dominant superpower world hegemony. It's the BRICS nations, it's Brazil, it's Russia, India, China, showing that they can have quite a bit of influence and relatively geopolitical stability in a time and place where a lot of people are looking for changes. So what are these changes? This is the pivot point. This is what no one else will tell you about. This is actually where it gets interesting, and there is some novelty. And you're only going to hear from me. What are the two major trends? These are obvious trends. Collapse of nation states, decentralized economies, new systems outside of the system. Okay, this is the next major thing a lot of you guys aren't playing into that you don't see yet. So for example, employment outside of the system, money outside of the system, investments outside of the system. No countries, absolutely borderless. This includes your tax structure, opting out of sovereign government tax structure. So there is no sovereignty of nation states, and you're going to watch, by design, borders continue to collapse in the coming days, weeks, months, and years. This is all by design. This is what they want. And so the question is not what happens next. I mean, we understand this from a philosophical, spiritual standpoint as well. It's not the question is what happens next from an end times perspective, like I was talking yesterday, but it's how to pivot into it, how to profit from it. How are you going to take advantage of the situation? Knowing these truths, knowing that the two major trends of no sovereign nation states, collapsing global governments, new systems of power, and systems with outside of the system that are being built. So let me give you an example of this. In the future, it's going to become a lot more common. This is why I built Island Project, where people ask, who are you? How do you define yourself? Where are you from? You're not going to say you're from a country like the United States. You're going to say, well, I'm a sovereign individual. I'm an investor in Island Project or other ideas like it. I'm a part of this community. I use this currency. These are the investments that I own. This is the technology that I use. So technological innovation is the second major trend. And of course, the blockchain space is leading this right now. This is where the forefront of all the major invention and the innovation is actually transpiring. It's in the blockchain space itself. So those two truths, those are the only things that you should be paying attention to. Non-sovereign nation states. In fact, many argue that with the fall of the Berlin Wall, that culminated the end of national borders and sovereignty. Now, I'm not saying like, I agree with that, I'm happy with that, but this is where it's going. This is an unstoppable force. We've also reached 8 billion people, or soon will be, reaching 8 billion people on this planet. And that's going to play into their narrative as well with the climate and the weather and collapsing first world nation states into second and third world countries and minimizing the sovereign power of countries like the United States, which have disproportionately controlled, and some would even argue unfairly had most of the wealth in our society. The aggregate wealth, of course, in westernized world, countries like the United States and Western Europe far surpassing second and third world. So these are kind of the big geopolitical dynamics currently transpiring in our system today. So the question is, where does it all go? Again, how do you pivot? How do you leverage? How do you profit from all of this? So every topic that I've been discussing in recent years all ties into the same model that I'm explaining to you today. And anyone smart paying attention that understands this stuff from a technological perspective, from a finance, economic perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from a religious perspective, knows these truths. All roads lead to Rome. And so everything that you're seeing, geopolitical war, invasion of Ukraine, and again, keep in mind, the only reason there's an invasion of Ukraine and Vladimir Putin invaded is because the US helped with the destabilization effort years prior and removed Viktor Yanukovych, who was friendly to Russia, and Vladimir Putin. NATO on the border of Russia, that increases tensions. It's exactly why he is taking action in this part of the world. So these are just like proxy wars in the overall big picture. And so we already know what's going to happen, no matter what the big event is, whether or not nukes go off or, God forbid, there's these other huge events that we're warning about. And we see with the supply shocks and the diesel shortages. Those are just at the surface. In fact, those topics, although they're important, they're not really the most important to be discussed right now because we already know this. We already know where this is going. We have a top-down view of the geopolitical strategy, okay, of where all this is pushing towards. So 5 years, 10 years from now, as this pivot occurs, again, what does it move to? It moves to sovereign individuals that create their own nation states with outside the system. This is actually the only way to survive. So I see a lot of people now, even among my same mindset, now that things have kind of gotten easier and they've opened things back up, they've become, well, I use the term a slug. They've been so tired because of the last couple of years and everything that was done to them. Now that things are kind of going back to normal, they're basically just going back into their shells. And here's why all this was allowed to happen, by the way. No ecosystems, no communities, they've all been destroyed. The infrastructure of America was destroyed. The small town, people working together, the church, the family, this was all destroyed by the institutions of government that aimed to destroy it so they could control you. We have oligopolistic companies that control food, energy, information, the political sphere, all these things. And because of that, the people actually have no power. So when I read things like in the Guardian magazine or whatever the media outlet is, and they're talking from a leftist perspective of the upcoming civil war that they say is a guarantee, a matter of time, as we move past the 2024 election, I really just see that at the surface. Because we already know all that's going to happen. It already has. And I've argued for some time, like much of these geopolitical moves have already transpired. Reordering of places like the East, the Pacific, China showing itself as a stable country and a stable power in a multipolar world. Again, be looking for that term. You're going to hear this much more often. This is going to be a common theme of your lifetime. Also, we see this play into cultural divide. For example, this article I was reading was saying that Caucasians will be the minority by, I think, 2050 or something. Maybe it was like 2040 to 2050. Well, number one, they always want to make it about race, but the only reason that's the case is because they've intentionally collapsed the borders and they've let everyone in. And not that immigration is necessarily a bad thing if it's legal, that's all fine. But the only reason these problems exist is because they created it. And so the multipolar world has been the covert agenda, basically since all this has been being implemented over the last several decades. None of this is surprising. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. This is what I had warned about for years, a death by 1,000 cuts, that if you allow them to go an inch, they're going to go a mile. So now here we are, and I did the sermon yesterday, I hope you enjoyed, about anyone causing divisions right now or playing into division is actually the deception. That's false teaching. We have the midterms. What is that going to all be about? It's going to be about false teachings and division. For example, the indictment of Trump, highly likely. He's going to run for 2024. They're going to indict him. In fact, they'll probably indict Hunter Biden as well. And the only reason that they're going to do that is to make it look like they're not partial to attacking Trump and the Republican Party. So all of this is by design. And you have to look at it from that perspective and realize that all of these changes in systems of government, all of this turmoil, all of this orchestrated division is leading to the two things I just described. And what are they? Let's in summation recite them. No borders, no countries. When the Berlin Wall fell, it was the end of sovereignty of nation states. This means decentralized nation states need to be formed and new economies and ecosystems need to be built. So this is what I encourage you to think about. I mean, again, it's why Island Project, and I'll do videos on what is Island Project for those of you that don't know. But it's a decentralized ecosystem and it's an investment portfolio that invests in real estate and economies and digital currencies that are sovereign to you and our community, and those of you that are out actually a part of it that can use it and build the new Americas and build the new countries and the nation states that you actually support and that you actually want. Because the problem with all of this, at least as I look at it from my perspective, is I don't want any of this that's happening. I don't want my kids to live in a world, how you doing, man? Where there's no freedom and where they don't have opportunity and where there is no capitalism and where there is no system for them to operate, to invent, to have spirit, to have art, to have intelligence, to have hope, and to have joy. So here's how you know, I'll leave you with this hard-hitting fact. Here's how you know what the beast system is and the hills that you should be willing to fight and die on. As I enter this beautiful view, I'll show you in a minute. Anything that takes you away from our Lord, anything that takes you away from God in your spirit. So whether or not this is the mark of the beast being implanted in your head with a microchip, or it's the other things that many people had to stand up against over the last couple of years. And you know what I'm talking about? Anything that removes your power and your inhibitions to think for yourself and what God created, which is your ability to have free will and to be connected with Him, is evil of Satan. And it's a hill worth standing up to and a hill worth dying on. So I'll go into more detail in all of this very soon. Here, I want you to see this beautiful view here. Today it's quite gorgeous. Okay, because everything in your life is your mindset. Ladies and gentlemen, it's absolutely what you think about. So anyways, in conclusion, these are the major trends. You got to build new systems. You got to build new economies, new forms of money, new countries. You got to get outside of the system. You need to own real investments. And also what is so key about Island Project and what we're doing with our real estate portfolio, real assets outside of the bank during a debt collapse, during a reset, during capital controls, during economic collapse, during all these things that people are warning about right now, which is why we're not using any leverage. And then building those systems of which you actually physically own. You own the underlying asset, you own the shares, you own the cash flows, you own the real value. And then building this system as we start and connect them geolocationally around the world. See, Maui is just flagship 1. Oahu is flagship 1. Then we move and decentralize around the world while we create the biggest liquidity event in world history and the first blockchain billionaire technology that's ever been built backed by real assets, and specifically beach oceanfront, of course, here in this beautiful location of Maui. So these are the major trends, ladies and gentlemen. I'll include links below if you want to learn more about Island Project. Please feel free to reach out to my team. You can speak with us direct at islandproject.com. You can go to the membership tab. And also I encourage you to join the club. I have set up a new Calendly system. So once you join Island Project Club for the $1,500 minimum, you can actually set an appointment with me digitally. It's really easy to do. You just click a button and you can check out my availability in the coming days. And we can set up a phone call or a Zoom call where I can tell you more about the project, what my top picks are at school. You get my 1000x videos, my metaverse plays, the other technologies that I'm watching right now, and basically the inside scoop on how to create cash flows, long-term profits, pivot into the greatest technology opportunity in the world. And I'll also leave you on just an optimistic entrepreneurial note. For those of you that are looking to improve your life, especially if you're in sales or marketing, the reason you're not getting ahead is because no one knows you. The reason why you're broke, it might sound harsh, is because no one knows you. They don't know you. So I always say, if I don't know you, I can't cash flow you. Okay, so click the link below. You're only as strong as your network. And in a world of collapsing sovereignty, collapsing nation states, divisions in the United States, what The Guardian and the other mainstream media outlets are warning is going to be civil war. You're only going to be as strong as your community, the technology, the investments that you own, the clubs that you're in, like Island Project Club, okay? And the assets that are outside of the system that can support you and your family in the ideals of freedom. And here's what I almost forgot. The biggest outlier here, what I commonly see, and I see this from just like a truth perspective and a philosophical perspective, the reason America has collapsed in a large respect, although it lives within inside all of us, is the clear lack of a common sense of purpose and vision. I see a total lack of common sense of purpose and vision. And this is what Island Project has. So anyways, I love you guys. God bless. Jesus Christ is King. Click the link below. I want to see you at the club. Register today before the price goes up and schedule a call with me and get all my picks and all of our videos on blockchain technology and more, plus access to the early bird of the Island Project Roadmap launch. And also get into the islandproject.com and become an investor member today and own shares of this first world-class portfolio, the billionaire blockchain technology of real assets with no debt with flagship 1 here in beautiful Maui and Oahu. Links below and up here. See you there.